Welcome back. You're watching Buy Now on Buy Now, Sell Now on ET Now, and let's get on with our high risk and low risk ideas with our experts. Good morning, Kunal, as well as Gaurang. Kunal, I'll come first to you. What's your high risk and low risk idea for our viewers today?
Well, it's more of a high risk and a moderate risk idea, Cheryl, at this point of time. The first one which I picked up in terms of stock selection is about Lupin. Now, earlier also, I was very bullish on the stock. It used to take a lot of resistance at the 1100, 1122 as a precise zone of resistance for the last 4-5 months. But finally, the stock seems to have broken past about that resistance. So I would sense that this could be a strong move where the stock can cover up its huge underperformance and start a strong uptrend for itself, which I believe should last for at least a couple of months or a couple of quarters, if not more. So from that kind of a perspective, would suggest a buy with a target of 1300 and stop loss could be kept at 1070 mark. The PSU stocks are the ones where you're seeing some renewed focus and renewed buying action. So I've picked up yet another PSU name from the basket. Canara Bank is the stock which I would suggest as a buy. Looks quite strong today. More of a carry forward move from where it left off yesterday. Strong volume action the last couple of days, and the entire PSU pack moving in a synchronized manner, I think should add to more positivity to the stock price. So what's the buy again as a positional play, expecting that the retest of the previous major highs of 173, 175 could be done again for Canara Bank. So more of a multi-week trade. Buy with a target of 175 on Canara Bank, stop loss 139.
That is Kunal's high risk and moderate risk idea. Gaurang, what are your ideas for the viewers today?
Thank you, Cheryl, and morning to you as well. So, long-term fundamental ideas, two of them. First one is Supreme Industries. I think just about last week or thereabout, we saw the numbers from Supreme Industries, and I think they met all our expectation, and in certain parameters, they were above our estimates. So we have maintained a buy for a pretty long period of time on Supreme Industries, but on fallback of the earnings that we have witnessed, we have raised our targets to 2,500. So that's the first one. The second one is from the construction stroke infra space, and that's KNR construction. Again, the problem short to medium term could be lack of availability of labor, wherein there could be certain timelines that could get violated in terms of completion of projects. But long term, we remain extremely positive on KNR constructions. We're targeting somewhere close to about 260 from 1.5 2 year time horizon.
All right, it's time now to hit the query segment, and a number of you have already logged in live. I would encourage everybody who's tuning in on Twitter and Facebook to also ask their questions. I'm going to start with YouTube though. We've got Kijar Patel, apologies Kijar for that, who's asked the first question on YouTube. He's got an HUL 2400 call. So he's basically asking whether to hold or sell. Kunal, this is obviously for you.
So I would suggest that maybe hold for at least the next couple of days. I'm sensing that this is a May expiry. You have a lot of days for the May expiry. The stock is just about at the money, which is what we call the stock when it's very, very close towards the strike price of the option. So the stock is at the money to your option price. So which is why I think it should not be too much of a time decay to the stock price, and as it is, it's a long expiry. We have another 22 days for the expiry to go by. So I think in that aspect you can hold on, watch for it for the next couple of days. If the stock manages to break past about today's high or today's opening high 24.25, 24.30 on the spot levels, then I would expect a big up move coming on for HUL. But at least another couple of days should be taken to get a confirmation. The FMCG many of the other FMCG names like Marico, etc. are looking quite strong. So which is why I would sense that after a couple of days of consolidation, it is possible that HUL can again break out on the upside. So I would suggest a hold as of now.
We've got a question coming in from Ankit Garg Gaurang, and this one is on Castrol India. He's got 200 shares at 185, and it's not performing according to what he had anticipated. What advice do you have for him?
Alex, on the fundamental side, we have a buy on Castrol, and the numbers gone by for this company as well was pretty decent compared to the earlier quarters we've seen. And more importantly, what we have understood from the management commentaries that their power brands like Magnetec, the engine oil, has again started to recapture the lost market share. They have also tied up with certain automobile manufacturers in terms of branded engine oil supplies that could augur well. But my sense is that in terms of performance, you need to have a lot of patience because there is huge competition as well in the industrial stroke automobile lubricant sector, Alex. But we are quite satisfied with the numbers. In fact, what I would suggest over here is that maybe if the stock is trading somewhere below 130 or 140, my request would be to possibly average at lower levels. This primarily because we have targets close to about 180, 185.
All right, our next viewer query is coming in from Akshat Nagpal. He's saying that he owns 200 shares of Lupin that he's bought at 900 rupees per share, and this is since August 2017. He wants to know what's the long-term perspective for this particular counter, whether he should continue to hold on to this name or should he replace it with another pharma name, or if no pharma name at all. Gaurang, what's your take on Lupin 200 shares which he's bought in August 2017 at 900 rupees per share?
So Cheryl, this is an underperforming stock when you compare to the entire pharma universe and the way most of the companies have performed in the pharmaceutical sector. There are two, in fact, names. One is Lupin and another one is Biocon. But we remain structurally positive from a long-term point of view, though let me be very, very specific and clear about the targets. We have targets close to about 1,000, 1,050, so don't expect any flying returns from Lupin. And just in case, since you are concerned about your investment, if you do want to make a switch from here, then I would advise two names. One is Divi's Laboratories and the second one is Cipla. This is in the pharma universe itself, in case if you are wanting to switch your investment in pharmaceutical sector. Or else if you want to make a switch of a sector overall, then I think two banks that came out with the numbers which were stellar numbers, Axis Bank or ICICI Bank. You can pick either of these two.
Fantastic. You've already given answers for a lot of queries, but don't worry, I will still take those queries individually. We've got a question from Radish, and it's quite an interesting question. Kunal, I think you'll be able to answer this. It simply asks, will the Sensex go down in the upcoming days? And I think that really sums up the sentiment for the retail investor, doesn't it? But on the charts, if you look at the benchmark, what are the signs that it's giving you?
So frankly, I think, looking at the charts on the indices, so I'll probably give it as a more broader answer, and I'll try and correlate with, Nifty, because that's what, we track quite occasionally. Now, on the Nifty or on the indices as such, there is hardly any major trend which is coming out. Remember that the markets have gone through almost 9, 10, 11 months of an extended price uptrend. Now, it's bound to be that after such an extended price uptrend, traders, they tend to get overbought. So I think somewhere in the month of February post-budget, the markets went into a bit of a frenzy. It went into an overbought zone, and overbought zones, they generally result into time corrections, at times maybe even vicious price corrections, but those are corrective natures or corrective trends which happens into the indices. Now, which is why I believe that from a near term view, yes, possibly that the index can go through a corrective phase. We might probably retest at 14,300 mark, maybe go slightly below that as well, but it's more to do with a corrective phase. So to answer your question, possibility of the index going lower, yes, it is there. But again, as I said, these are part and parcels of a long-term structural uptrend. So if you're looking at it as a more portfolio buy, then I would say use these kind of corrections to try and increase holdings in your portfolio or add more quality stocks as now they're available cheap.
Next viewer queries come specifically for Gaurang, and this one is, I believe, an email query that we've got from MS Shetty, and talking about Adani Ports. Wants to know whether can look to buy into Adani Ports currently, given that it's come out with its numbers, or should the investor go and buy at current rate, and which is the best Adani share to invest in currently, intends to buy 200 shares of Adani Ports is what MS Shetty is saying, Gaurang.
Well, Cheryl, I am tied down with the regulation that is put in place. That is, if we don't have a coverage, I really can't comment specifically on buy, sell, and hold. But I can at least say this much to Mr. Shetty. And looking at the numbers that were announced, I believe yesterday, correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl, there was more than 200% jump in the profitability. And this is the company which has the largest, volume handling of containers in India. Along with that, if I have to reflect upon the capex or the acquisition that this company is planning to do, I think it augurs extremely well in terms of the future growth of the company. But since regulation doesn't permit me to specifically, say in terms of buy, sell, and hold, I will only say that it's a great company. Unfortunately, we don't have a coverage. I would request Kunal to possibly highlight something in case if he's got some chart specific advice.
We'll have to circle back to that if we have time, Gaurang, because there are so many other people who are asking questions at the moment. The next one is also for you. Joby Sebastian is asking a question about Affle India. There's no doubt that this stock has already been a multi-bagger, but he's asking whether it's a good bet for the long term in the digital space.
So I think again, the company has managed to perform well in difficult times as well. And yes, like you rightly mentioned, Alex, Affle has been outperforming to a great extent. There does come a time wherein outperforming sectors or stock often get faced by profit booking or consolidation, if you will, post the fantastic run-up that you see. But if you are wanting to get into this particular sector or this particular company from a long-term point of view, I would advise that staggered approach of investing would be a much better way of getting invested instead of going and putting all your money at one time.
Alright, our next viewer queries come from Shubh Mathur. He wants to know the long-term as well as short-term view on Barmalori investments, but I will take this one to Kunal. Kunal, what's your take on Barmalori? How is the chart looking for this particular counter?
All over the place, frankly, Cheryl. I think from a low of around 75-80, a year back, March 2020 low, the stock had jumped up to 160, 165, and from 165 it's corrected back towards 120. So these are very volatile and very high-paced moves for stock prices, and these generally happen when the direction or the trend is not clear. And such kind of stocks are the ones which we tend to ask or advise the viewers, investors to try and avoid, because when you don't have any clarity of trend, when you have too much of volatility and too much of whipsaw, it becomes very difficult to try and participate on the long-term structural uptrend. So I would suggest an avoid on Barmalori, looking at specifically the last 1 year of high-paced volatility and no signs of a major trend which is creeping up.
I think this is next one is a time sensitive question. I do not know. Okay, so Sherry is asking about Interglobe Aviations, Kunal, and this is something that is what Sherry has done is that Sherry has bet against the counter and is expecting that it will get hit on account of the second wave of the pandemic. Has bought a May put. What Sherry is asking, why is the stock rising consistently despite the overarching conditions?
Well, I may not be able to answer the why, why the stock is going up or going down. But then, typically we look at, relative outperformance or underperformance for a stock as compared to either the news flow or the sentiment which is going on. For Indigo, you look at the last, 6 months, I think from December end or November end somewhere, the stock had come back into this range of 1550 and 1800. And even though there have been spate of so many news flows and some positive news flows at the start of 2 quarters back, but the stock has remained sideways. Now, typically when a stock remains more sideways, it is very difficult to preempt that which direction the stock will break out. So what we ideally do is we wait for the breakout levels to happen. And so I think for the viewer as well, where he's invested into the put options on Indigo and trying to question that why the stock is going up or going or not going down, it generally happens that the stock, which is within a range, it tends to act a bit tricky and funny. It's difficult to anticipate what level the breakout could happen. But I would suggest that if you're looking to buy a put option, then a better level is that just let the stock confirm a breakdown below 1500 levels. That would be a much more prudent decision, that you're buying the stock when it actually confirms a breakdown. Other than that, I think you should avoid this trade.
Now, right, our next viewer query is coming in from Shanti, saying that Oriental Aromatics, the current market price is at around 918 rupees per share or levels, bought 100 shares at the rate of 210 9 months ago. The stock has gained actually 4.5 times in the short to medium term. But one, she wants to know what's the reason for such a bull run, and where should they keep their target as well as stop loss. Kunal, I'll come to you rather with this query on Oriental Aromatics.
I don't track the stock, Cheryl, so I won't be able to comment on it, frankly.
All right. And Gaurang, will you want to take that one in case if you track it?
Yeah, sure. So no specific comments over here, but my humble request to all the investors is that from a short to medium term, if you're making this kind of a return, greed is always something that overshadows your expectation, and that ends up into some, very fatal mistakes. At least try to take off whatever you invested in this particular stock and add another 15-20%, so that your investment comes to zero level and you don't have to spend sleepless nights.
It's a very fair point, especially in a counter that appears to be a little bit volatile. Coming back to you on this one, Gaurang, and this is a question from Rajan Vittal. On the commercial vehicle space, he's mentioned Tata Motors and he's mentioned Ashok Leyland. But I would think that from a pure play commercial vehicle space oriented company, you would want to talk about Ashok Leyland. What's your view?
So I've been maintaining a positive view for a pretty long period of time. We as a company, Geogen, and both Tata Motors as well as Ashok Leyland, we are extremely positive. And more importantly, Alex, I think 1st April 2022 will be the time when you'll have the entire scrappage policy come into play, and I think we'll have a lot of clarity by that also. So there is going to be a huge replacement demand. Along with that, there is going to be a new demand as well. Coupled with it, you have the foray into e-vehicle segment as well. So you have Tata Motors, Ashok Leyland, Mahindra and Mahindra, which is also into manufacturing of commercial vehicles, and also Eicher Motors. So these are the 4 names that one should have on your radar. And whenever market corrects, you should look at opportunities into investing into these companies. Ashok Leyland specifically, I think I wouldn't be surprised to see go towards 145, 150 and beyond.
Our next viewer queries come from Rajiv. He's saying that he has 900 shares of Engineers India, which he's purchased at 97 rupees per share. He wants to know whether it's good to hold on for the longer term. Gaurang, what's your take on Engineers India?
Well, Cheryl, honestly, it has been an underperformer, and let me say this absolutely with a lot of responsibility, that not all the public sector companies will end up giving you multi-bagger returns or returns that you expect. There are going to be companies in the public sector universe which may possibly tend to disappoint. So my advice would be that maybe come out of this particular name, and if you're looking at, if I have to advise on something, a small private sector banks, then Federal Bank or an IDFC First Bank would be a preferred choice.
Okay, Kunal, coming to you on this next one, we've got an intraday question, though we're already nearing the halfway point of it. Sheikh is asking about ONGC for today.
I think it's attractive, maybe not for today, but I think from a short-term view, I would suggest 116 to 118 as a target range for ONGC. In fact, it was one of my early morning calls on the morning show as well, where I had suggested that PSU stocks would continue to move up higher from where they left off yesterday. I had a target of 116 on ONGC with a time frame of at least 1-2 days. So maybe if you can hold out for a couple of days, then I believe 116 could be a good possibility. If you've bought maybe a couple of days back, then I think trail your stop loss to yesterday's closing price, which is approximately 108.
All right, our next viewer query is actually coming in from Danny Varghese. He wants to know what's the view on Tata Consumers. Is it a good time to enter this particular counter over the short term, Kunal?
So I think it's a good time to look at Tata Group of stocks, specifically Tata Consumers. I think the stock price has been very stable, quite trending in nature. We've seen many of the times that the stock has gone through phases of 10% correction, but then it makes a comeback also in almost like a V-shaped recovery. So these are classical trend patterns which you spot on stocks like Tata Consumers. I would suggest that have a buy on dip strategy starting maybe from current levels of 640, which is also the 50-day moving average support for Tata Consumer, and then look to add up maybe another 40-45 rupees on the lower side. So if the stock gives you that kind of an entry point, say for the next two zones, maybe a 600 or 590 as the next entry point, and say closer to 560, 550 as a second entry point, then I believe it's a good strategy where you can buy on dips and then look at it as holding on to it from a longer term view.
The next question is for you, and Jignesh is asking about two counters, Kotak Mahindra Bank and United Spirits. On a lighter note, I would assume that it's basis what kind of liquidity you're looking at.
Absolutely true, Alex. And we've been maintaining a positive view from a long-term point of view on both these names, Alex.
Sandeep from Bangalore, he's saying that he's purchased 500 shares of Reliance India at 129 rupees per share. He wants to know if there is any target for this particular counter for this week, next week, or even for a month. So Kunal, what's your take on Reliance India?
On the buying price, but then looking at the charts for Reliance India, there is one major concern which is there for not just this stock, for many of the stocks, is low liquidity. So you have to be very, very careful of stocks where the average trading volume is just meager thousands. I think today's volume as well, if I'm not wrong, on the National Stock Exchange is just about, I think, 8,000 or 9,000 shares for the stock so far. So these are very thinly liquid counters. So you have to be very, very careful into these, kind of stocks. But then looking at the, I would say, medium term kind of a trend, I think it's a good price where you can look to enter, specifically if it's a trading kind of a bet. At 120 to 123, I would expect maybe a dash towards a 144, 150 zone for Reliance India. So keep that as a target range, and stop loss you can keep it at closer to 114 levels.
Coming back to you on this next one, Kunal, Reliance Industries, after its earnings, I think to a certain extent has underperformed and in fact been a bit of a drag on the index as well. Shiva Kumar is asking a question about this. He's bought 20 shares of Reliance Industries at 2035. He's looking to hold for at least 6 months to a year, and he's wondering what kind of targets he should look at.
I think if it's a 6 months to 1 year kind of a time frame, then I think you should stay invested on Reliance Industries. See, the stock is taking a lot of time, correction, and trying to restart an uptrend, which it did, I think, in the first half of the post-COVID recovery as well, from post-March 2020 recovery. So post that, it's gone through a bit of an underperforming zone. But these large cap stocks, they tend to have a habit of going through strong phases of outperformance, and when there is too much of leverage, too much of overweight stance into these kind of names, they tend to go into a time-wise correction, which I think is happening for Reliance Industries. But I think from a 1 year plus perspective, I think it's a good hold. I would suggest maybe an averaging opportunity. If the stock comes back to say 1875, 1850 zone, which is a multiple support zone for Reliance Industries, that's a good zone where you can look to average further.
Fair call. All right, coming to you on the next one, Gaurang, recent listing, perhaps some of the froth coming off now for Burger King. We've got Parth, who's bought at levels of 152, but he's looking to hold for the next 10 years. Should he do so?
Well, do an SIP, Alex. I think I would advise that. Don't go and spend your money on burgers. We had maintained subscribe during the IPO via an IPO note. And I think they have got enough products to offer in the menu to tickle your taste buds.
All right, if we have one, last question for you. We've got Tejas Network from Sumit, bought at levels of 185. Should he continue to accumulate, Gaurang?
Well, I would advise him to sell on rally and look at private sector banks. So over there, if I have to suggest two more names, that would be City Union Bank and CSB. These two names would be preferred destination.
On that note, we're completely out of time. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking all the questions that you did, and all of you joining in on social media. We've tried to accommodate as many questions as we possibly could. Do come back tomorrow. We'll take more and we'll start at 11:15 as usual. Thank you so much, gentlemen, once again for joining in. We're slipping into a short break. More on the other side.
Unlike many parts of the world, we have a fairly large retail participation